We've got a mob boss single mom. We've got an old mercenary who wants nothing more than to retire from his life of war. And a con artist cult leader with a secret pretending to be a god. What more do you need? Hey guys, I'm Jessie, and today I have a spoiler-free book review for Seeds of War. This is a self-published epic fantasy book, and I think you're gonna love it. Seeds of War is an epic fantasy set in a very brutal world. We have Gimlor, who is kind of a war veteran who is now running this town with an iron fist and just wants to maintain her freedom, the freedom of the people of her town, and raise her kids. Then we have Red Now, who is an old mercenary running a group of mercenaries who are all former orphans. And all he wants is to retire from his life of war after one final job. And then we have Orbriasis, I think is how you say it. And he is a con man who accidentally saved the world, became a cult leader, and is now convincing everyone that he's a god. But he has a dark secret of his own. In this book, we follow the three of them, and then we get to kind of watch them as their stories converge, and we know that is my favorite kind of story. So if that sounds like an interesting concept to you, definitely keep watching, and I will give you all of my thoughts on Seeds of War. First, we're going to talk about the characters. And there's a lot of them, and I love them all. First and foremost, we've got Gimlor, my absolute favorite. The reason that I was hooked on this book from just reading the synopsis, and that is because we all know I love a badass mom, and she fits that bill. She was a street orphan, and she became kind of this con woman-esque, and she is very much a war veteran. She has twins, and she is now free and running this town with kind of her henchmen, and she is producing this elixir that everybody wants, and nobody else knows how to make it except for her and her townspeople. And people they're out to get it, and she's okay with selling it, but people don't want to buy now. No. They want to conquer her, and she ain't gonna let that happen. And I just love her because she's very morally gray. She's a good person, but she's not a good person, but she cares. And she is a mom that is more than just a mom. Then we have Red Now, who I also love. He is this older mercenary character who takes in orphans and kind of raises them to be part of his militia. So he trains them and raises them, but he raises them well and then sends them out into the world to live normal lives until he is ready to call on them to join up with his, mercenary militia at any given time, which super cool. But all he really wants in life at this point is to pass on his legacy and retire somewhere warm. But we're not really sure if he's going to be able to do that. Then we have Orbriasis, and he is maybe one of the most fascinating characters because he is this one that he accidentally saves the world, doesn't know how he does it, but he uses that clout to be I'm a god, and literally start a religion and a cult. And he is now, convincing everybody that he is a god. And I mean high-ranking kings and officials. And he is using it to get what he wants. The problem is he has these debilitating migraines and pain. And he's trying to push through them because he is supposed to be pretending to be a god. But really what he wants is to find a way to cure himself. And to do that, he hears about this elixir. And he wants it for himself. All three of our main characters in this book, I think, are very well done. They are very nuanced. They're very morally gray. They have a lot of, very human elements to them where it's not all good and all bad. And, even the ones that you're you don't really like. you kind of feel for at some point. And I really like that about all of the characters. I really like that they all feel human and you feel for all of them. And the things that they go through, the decisions that they make, they all have, really great, character growth or character descent, depending on which character we're talking about. And I just thought they were all really well done. There was a few things character-wise that I wish we would have seen more of, specifically with Gimlor, and that's just because she was my favorite. But I know the whole thing with, like, she's a mom that's more than a mom, and she's not a very, like, lovey, cuddly person. But I did want to see at least a little bit more of her interacting with her kids. We don't get that very much. Like, even if it's not like lovey cuddly, I would like to see a little bit of more interaction. But this is also a first book in a series. We don't get the kids very much. But I will say, in the defense, at the last chapter, I think the way they set it up is we might get more of them later on. So really liked that. Oh, and we have kind of a secondary character as well, not one of our main three, but he is a Smokesmith, so one of the magic users in this world, and a couple of our characters are actually Smokesmiths. And he is like a former warden, and he's living in the town with Gimlor. And I love him because he's crotchety and like he's very like justice, but really he still escaped from his fate, but he wants like this like sense of justice, and he doesn't really get along with Gimlor. Like they butt heads, but she ends up like recruiting him to work with her, and he's like, I'm not going to work for you, but I will work with you to protect the town, because as I said earlier, people are coming. They want this elixir and they want it by any means necessary, and not necessarily by asking nicely and politely and giving them money for it. They want to just take it for their own. And yeah, the characters are so well done. So there's not much more I can say on them. We have a bunch of really cool side characters and some real moments with some of them. Like we get these two different kings in two of the plots, and one of them is like this old blind man who is like religiously fanatical with Obriasis and just like wants to do absolutely everything he says, and it's like, man, you have a king wrapped around your finger. And then the other one is very much like a warlord, not a good person, and there's a scene with him that really made me uncomfortable. So, yeah, like a weird orgy, ritualistic scene it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. So it does its purpose. But, like, it made me uncomfortable. But it was really good. Like, the whole book is so good. So, yeah. Characters are a 10 out of 10 in this book. I loved every perspective. I, of course, liked Gimlor the most, but like there wasn't like a perspective that I was like, ugh, every time we got to. So I was interested in all of the perspectives every single time we switched to them. Now we're going to kind of talk about the magic, because the magic is really cool. So people that use magic in this world are our Smokesmiths. But what I really liked is like Smokesmiths aren't born, they are made. And they are made by inhaling this smoke from like these specific herbs, and it kills most people. So how they make Smokesmiths is like the government would round up orphans and like put them in a literal chamber and pump smoke into it, and 99% of them died. And like the one out of 100 that survived would now be what they call a smokesmith. They would now have the ability to inhale this smoke and have it give them superhuman strength and things like that. And then some smokesmiths, not all of them, would also get like extra abilities. Like one can like kind of blink in and out and like kind of disappear. One can control fire. One of them can kind of shape shift into this like armored clawed beast. And it was really cool. Like it's a very cool magic system because it has a holocaust, right? Like most people die and it's forced upon them. It's not usually something that people are like, yeah, let's do it. But also it's something that continuously harms them because every time they use the magic, they have to inhale the smoke and it just like it damages like their lungs and their esophagus to the point where eventually that will kill them. Like it will completely like destroy their body from the inside out. So like they are sacrificing something every single time they have to use the magic within this story. So it's got to be used sparingly and in the right moments. But you know, when these kids are forced into it, the government kind of takes them and makes them their watchdogs, their guard dogs, their army, and they use them as a resource and then just trash them when they're done. We do learn a lot about the magic in this story as we go along, which I think was really cool. It kind of develops and your understanding of it and the character's understanding of it kind of grows and develops as we learn more and more things about this world. And I thought that was really cool because we learn ways that the magic can actually be used differently than everybody thinks. And I really thought that was cool. This has definitely got some gods among us. So I loved that. Just so you know, if you wanted to know trope-wise, it does have some gods among us. So it's kind of a different secondary form of the magic is there are gods that are out there that we slowly start to learn about. So definitely one to keep in mind. As far as the plot goes, it's really cool because, you know, we're following 3 different plot lines to start with. We're following Gimlor and her town. We're following Rednow and his final mission and trying to find, you know, his one person to be his successor. And then we're following Obriasis as he is trying to, you know, con everybody and heal himself. These points start to slowly converge on each other to where they're all end up in, you know, the same place because that's, you know, typically what happens with these multi-POV stories. I don't think that's a spoiler. They start to slowly converge, right? They all the plot points start to come together and make sense and be like, oh, okay, and then this, and then that's how she's connected to him, and then that's how he's connected to him, and then that's how he comes in. So it's really cool. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought the plot was very well paced. It always kept me on the edge of my seat and wanting more. There was never a dull moment where I was like, what's going on? This is stupid. I'm confused. There were so many questions, so many things going on. And at the end, there were so many big reveals that had me going, oh, I absolutely loved that. So I really think that it's a great first entry into a series, and I'm excited to see where it goes next because it's like, okay, we've got some resolution, but there was just enough openness to make you want more. And then that last chapter of the book had me being like, oh my God. Oh, when is the next one coming out? Because I need this story. So very, very well paced, well plotted, fantastic characters, and a really cool magic system. And there's a lot of different like politics kind of going on behind the scenes with different kingdoms. And, you know, they're warring and they're, you know, there's some, you know, uprising and rebellion and all of these things. But at the core of this story, it is about these people just wanting to be free and live their lives. So I really, really appreciated that. And I'm very excited to see where it goes next. And I really think that if you are a fan of epic fantasy, adult fantasy, and you want a really unique story with characters that we don't really see very often. You know, the brazen mom who's more than a mom, the old mercenary who needs to retire, and the anti-hero villain, maybe con artist. I really think it's one worth picking up and that you should check out. And if you have already read this, let me know your thoughts because I absolutely loved it and would love to talk to more people about it. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me. My name is Jessie and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.